And I guess before we move on, I'll go over links real quick. Everybody says links are unbalanced. Everybody says links are unbalanced. Links are unbalanced. Links are unbalanced. Why are they unbalanced? Because they give you full HP and they screen wipe. And you can ether through everything and just get a new one. That's Trinity Limit. That's Magnega, Thundaga, Trinity Limit. That's Magnega. That's Magnega Limit. I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that the fact that they fully heal you is an issue. I think the damage output is a little more of an issue, but it's a lot more of an issue with attraction than I think links. Because links are not free. Attraction is basically free. Attraction rides are free. What's unbalanced in links? Really quickly, you should not be able to go into MP recharge while you're using a link. Or for every single one that you absorb, it takes one sliver off of the MP bar. They don't heal normally. Like if you're in a link, I don't have video footage of it, but if you're in a link, actually let me pause. Let me show you a little bit of so you have a little visual. Okay, here we go. So this is somebody using a link in, I believe it's one of the battle gates. And look, that damage output that they're doing is insane. The amount of time he's staying on the screen is insane. That range is insane. The fact that he's barely taking damage is insane. Should have been nerfed slightly, but this is also endgame Sora. I don't know what level he is. I'm not going to comment on what he should be doing. But if you see here, the important part here, if you can see, is the MP gauge right here is in recharge. Now, when you use Link, it doesn't go into recharge until after you use it. So there's the finisher, and now it starts going into MP recharge and it starts going back. Here's the problem with links. Here's a particular battle, Kingdom Hearts 3. Right? You're against this enemy. Here. This troll enemy. And you've got all these Heartless here. Right? Now, these little snow Heartless drop MP orbs. So, and they're also weak to fire. If you use Simba, and you have Simba at this point, or use any other link, and you destroy these guys, or any surrounding area that, any effects that have magic orbs, if you destroy them, and you start absorbing them while you're in the link, it goes into MP recharge while you're in the link. That, I believe, is unbalanced. Completely. That needs to be taken out. Either you can't absorb them, or you absorb them and they take one sliver off and the MP bar still stays in recharge and doesn't start going down. Until that change is made, links are completely unbalanced. The fact that you can just hold like high ethers and just high ether link, high ether link, high ether link, that's the same as like holding ethers and limiting over and over and over in Kingdom Hearts 2. It's not any different. It's just the fact that there's a high ether that actually fully heals your MP recharge bar rather than ether that needs like 2, maybe 3 in a really big bar. So since I didn't really give a good visualization, here we go. I just loaded up another save file I have. This is at the end of the game, but I'm just going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go into a link here. I'm going to go into symbol link, and I'm going to attack the enemies that have the MP orbs. You'll see that instantly, like, this is also critical mode, so my MP is recharging faster, but it's just a few enemies and it's already back, so I don't have to do anything. I could just triangle button here if I wanted to, or I could exit and just do another link and just in certain battles in certain worlds, and this is a big offender, this world, you can just do that over and over and over, and then just basically spam this wide range AoE attack and go through. And if you didn't absorb your MP bar like that in the MP recharge, then this wouldn't be as much of an issue as it actually is. That's the difference. And damage output, yeah, on certain bosses and everything, it should be doing a lot more closer to chip damage than it should be. Where's the San Francisco fight? I think it's down here. I think it's down here. This is the most famous one. This is Wreck-It Ralph. Destroying an enemy in one hit. And just look at that HP bar. There we go. That's one hit. Now, they positioned that perfectly. That was exactly the way it needed to be positioned. But if you just stack them like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 on top of each other and do the same thing, then you might need a second Ralph. But it's the same effect. Simba, screen wipes, everything. Now this guy is using. Here's another one that people say Ariel is busted during big bosses and things like that. Here's Ariel real quick. This guy, this person, I don't know what their gender is, whatever, specifically waits for this attack because so he can dive up like that. So he can dive up and up and up and into the enemy. How do you balance that? Well, you can't. Then don't let Ariel dive into enemies. She can only dive into the solid bottom ground. She can't dive anywhere else. That would actually be a little bit more fair. That damage that's doing though is insane. And we could see an enemy that you dive into. I actually don't know. Maybe they're going to actually dive into the enemy as well. Nope. Yeah, that damage is insane. But this is a specific boss that has a huge hitbox. That damage is still insane. Absolutely insane. And then you're just going to see more. You're just going to see more and more of that. So are Links completely unbalanced? No, they need a damage nerf. They need that unbalancement with the MP recharge. But the other thing with Links is there should be 3 tiers. So, like, there's 3 tiers with every magic. You know, specifically, the magic that's used with Links is Cure. It fully heals you. Now, what it should do is, if your magic bar is at a certain percentage, so less than a half, more than a half, or at full, should be the 3 tiers that's at. Because that's the easiest, I think, just less than half, more than half, versus then going 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Just the first level of it is less than 50%, and it does basic cure, which is like 40% health, and it does chip damage. Then it does, between 99% and 50%, 51% does Cura as far as the healing, and the damage does 2 times chip damage. So if your Ariel is literally doing like chip damage for each one, it does double that. If your Simba's doing chip damage, and it does, or close to chip damage, and every one needs to be adjusted. Like Simba can't do the same amount of damage as Ariel or Ralph's attacks, but Ralph's attack should be doing a lot less. And then at full MP, it does Curaga, which fully heals you, and it does whatever the max damage is, which should be pretty much half of what they are doing now, if you want to make them more balanced. The reason they're not, I believe, like that, and the reason they're so powerful, 2 reasons. A, each one has a specific usage. Simba's crowd control. Ariel is on a big enemy. Ralph is slightly between the 2 of those, and Stitch is on a smaller humanoid enemy. Stitch could also be crowd control, but you'd much rather use Simba. You could use Ralph on that, what's it called? On that Heartless fight with either the T-Rex or the Demon Tide. You could get very similar results. Or you could use Ariel on the Mother Gothel fight if you had Ariel at that point. But I'm sure you'd want to use the other one like that because they are for those specific use cases. So they have their own specific use cases, kind of like summons, Kingdom Hearts 2. Genie is a little more like just high attack potency, but he has different varieties of single target versus multi-target. Stitch is for healing MP. Peter Pan's for a second life and healing HP. And Chicken Little is for like stunning and crowd control. And then Genie is just high damage output. So they all have their own specific use cases. So that's why they're like that, because and they're also kind of all crowd control in a certain way because of this. Number 5. The rest of these are all RNG. So what's the one thing here that you have control over other than magic? Links. And early magic is not really crowd control. Early thunder sucks. Fire's a single target. Blizzard doesn't freeze more than one thing. Water doesn't hit the enemy right next to it, even though it looks like it explodes. The second stages are slightly better, and then the third stages are really good. And then the grand magic is what's broken. But links are your only way of true crowd control that you can control. So that's why they're unbalanced that way. Now, they should really be nerfed for bosses because they fucking shred through bosses. Like hell, like you've just seen. You can watch that video and any other video and they'll show you the same thing. But links are that way because, well, that's what they needed to be. They were like, hey, we have too many options that are too unfair. We have summons, we have magic, and we have links that can be used really like all together. You could use a link with magic. You can use magic with your summons. You have summons that help you gain more MP for your magic. You have summons that just break enemy health bars and just shred them. You've got links that do the same. You're invincible during links. So how do you fix all those things? Well, they all inevitably, all those things and the team seeing that led to things being the way they are here. So that's why everything is the way that it is there. So how do you fix links? Plain and simple. Well, you link their damage output to the amount of MP that's there and their curing and their healing capacity, which also means slightly nerfing their damage. You adjust the damage that they do specifically on bosses, so you can't just link through them. That would be a lot better. But also, you don't have these things readily available to you to also go and do anything to bosses, so, and then you take away the MP recharge thing. If you don't take away the MP recharge and you don't adjust their attack value and you don't adjust it to their HP, then it's like just nerfing links doesn't do anything. Because if it's still nerfed, like if you nerf the damage to links to do basically chip damage, and you can still go into MP recharge, it doesn't fix the problem that's in a lot of the battles that you're going to use them for, other than the boss battles, which you can just have 6 high ethers and just shred through a boss anyway. So it doesn't really matter there. It doesn't matter if it does chip damage. If it's still doing 1.5 bars every single link, or 2 bars of health. It doesn't matter. If it's chip damage and it's doing like 30, 40 hits, who cares? It's doing chip damage. It's to a boss. It's going to shred through their HP anyway. So I'm going to have to waste more high ethers is the solution of nerfing the damage for links. Links need to have the MP recharge fixed. They need to have their damage output and their healing adjusted depending on your MP bar. Also, another thing that I guess I forgot to completely address, I thought that I did when I was talking about links specifically, but I didn't. You can see how shoehorned in links was to the rest of the conversation because I didn't feel like talking about them because it's going to be long. But the other thing that really they do need to have is 1 link per battle. So every time that you enter a battle, not a world, not a level, every time that you're in a battle, so this will really stop it for boss battles, is only 1 of each link. So you can't use Ralph over and over and over, or Ariel over and over and over in one battle. You only get 1 of each. So if you're facing a big enemy, you got to use Ralph and Ariel. If you get in crowd control, you got to use Meow Wow and Simba. So you can't just use Simba 4 or 5 times over with a bunch of ethers and just get through the whole battle. And that would also lead to what we addressed here in number 5 of there's a lack of control, really. Like the player doesn't have a lot of control of what they're going to be doing. They just have to start clicking things, and they just have to hope and pray for some things. Well, that leaves the player with some control. Hey, do I leave all of my MP for a link versus use magic and then an ether and then use a link? Is the only option you have when combining magics with links. But if you adjust it to be like, hey, less than 50% is a cure and less damage, full is max, and then between that is mid range and cura. Well, then you can use actually like an arrow or thunder or water or a fire or a blizzard. You could freeze a couple enemies that are problems, and then you can use a link. It's going to do less damage, but you can safely do a link, or you can freeze an enemy or two, take out an enemy with a combo. That's a problem. And then now you have links, and then you can kind of do and do kind of chip damage. Or you could not. You could just use the link and then go back and then use magic immediately afterwards, after you use a Hyther. You can have more options that way. So that's the way that links really need to be balanced. It's not the fact of just their damage output. Because if you think that it's just their damage output that's stupid, you're not getting the full crux of links. Because there's a lot more unbalancement there. But all of that is unbalanced because this is all the way that it is, and this is all the way that it is because of Kingdom Hearts 2's battle system and the way that a lot of those things, people would say they have synergy, but they are unfair compared to like what you're facing. Shreds through everything. You know, Zigbar is the example. You could duck flare that dude into oblivion. He's stupid. He's one of the stupidest guys because it takes him forever, like in his third phase, to actually hit him. You could just duck flare his ass. There's not a goddamn thing that dude can do about it.